This is Henry Langrehr on the Break It Down show.
Yeah, this is an incredible opportunity. Thanks, Henry, for coming on. And thanks, Jim, for setting this up. I'm going to let you introduce our guest.
Well, actually, I don't, there's so many accolades I could use. I don't know which one to pick. Henry, let me go with just the simplest one. Henry is a veteran of World War II, jumped into Normandy on D-Day. And like many veterans, is now telling, kind of trying to preserve his story for future generations. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of folks left from that generation. But everyone that I've met, to kind of paraphrase the title of another book of mine, or that I had the privilege of working with someone on, every one of them is a hero.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know Henry will say he's not the hero. He says it in the book and everything, but right. Absolutely, these stories are incredible. And I'm so glad that you got a chance to tell it, because you're not going to probably get a chance to talk the rest of the time. I'm going to ask you a question first, Jim. How did you find this story and then decide that Henry was the guy that you wanted to work with?
Well, actually, I can't really take any credit, to be totally honest. The First Army had invited me to participate in their D-Day ceremonies. I believe they probably had an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
They had met Henry quite a while. I guess the people there had met Henry quite a while ago. And anyway, I think I was in town for maybe 5 minutes, and the unit historian, and just pretty much everybody from, the driver to the, 3-star general, or I forget how many stars, a lot of stars, general, they were all kind of working on me to tell this, to help tell the story, not that I told it. Really, it's Henry's story. And so, I'd love to take a lot of credit, but I really can't.
But you'd done the work in the blind, like you'd already done the work. You just didn't know that, this was going to be a project for you. I mean, you have already told Ray's story, all these. You're obviously a great storyteller.
All these. The interesting thing to me is that no matter all the stories, the stories do follow some general patterns. You see common themes and that sort of thing. But each man and each woman too is individual. We were very lucky in this book to to be able to tell some of the home front stories through Henry's girlfriend at the time, and then she becomes his wife. And that, I think, not that story is totally forgotten, but that's a really, really important part of the story too. And what the people back home, not just women, there were, children, obviously, and older people who couldn't qualify to fight, but they made incredible sacrifices, and and they pitched in. And I can't say that they didn't complain, because that's not really realistic. There were certainly some complaints, but by and large, you think about it, you're talking years from Pearl Harbor until VJ Day, which is in the fall, and and then some of the hardships continue afterwards. So the country really, really pulled together. You had people from many areas, regions, beliefs, faiths, everything just kind of working together. And that's one of the things that's come to me from talking to these guys, not just Henry or Ray, but some of the other fellows, whether in researching or talking about the book afterwards, or the books afterwards, is just kind of that can-do spirit. And it makes you feel, if these people, if our grandparents, or in some cases parents, great-grandparents in other cases, and great-great-great-grandparents soon, I guess, if they can get through that, we can get through whatever we're faced with, whether it's a virus or a pandemic, or or the normal stuff that we have to deal with every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's so true. And actually, let me kick the question over to Henry. Jim's talking about the home front sacrifice, and Gabby Jurgens is talking about the home front girls here in the chat. And it's important to recognize you come from Iowa and Clinton, and you guys were hit really hard by the Depression, and you were climbing out. But in the book, you talk about how the moms were working 12-hour shifts at night so they could get up, get the family ready out the door, rest up and get back there. Talk a little bit about that time, as you saw it and experienced it, even coming back. Like, what was that like for them?
They lost a lot with food stamps. They had to have stamps to buy food. They had to, if you need a pair of shoes, you had to turn the shoes in, and you had to have stamps to get it. If you had to get gasoline was rationed very tightly. You would be able to get, like, my father-in-law was a salesman. He could get 5 gallons of gas a month. Well, 5 gallons of gas, and those old clunkers that we had, they were gas eaters. It didn't take very long. And they all had vegetable gardens. They called them victory gardens, and grew their own vegetables and that, and shared them. Because again, meat was rationed very tightly. Butter, ice cream, almost unheard of. It was very hard on them. They worked very long hours. My wife worked 12-hour shifts and made in a factory that made machine gun stands. And all of her girlfriends did the same thing. There wasn't too much happiness, I would say, or frivolity for people to the movies were the big thing. The movies, for 10 cents, you could go to the movies and relieve your whole attention a little bit and see something on the screen. They always had the news on the screen, RKO, and it was tough for them. It was really tough for them.
Speaking of movies, when The Longest Day comes out, Bob Mitchum's accounted for, Henry Ford is accounted for, John Wayne. But when you saw that movie coming out, did you think, oh, that's my fight? Like, what were your thoughts as that movie was coming up? Because you are in the middle of that movie, basically.
Yes, that's right. Well, I didn't know anything about it. We went and saw that movie when it came out, my family and I, and we enjoyed it. It was pretty much lifelike for the time, Don't have the special effects and everything that they had, nowadays. But yes, it was a real surprise.
Who should have played you in the movie?
Good question. Well, I guess anybody could have played the part.
Jim, who would you cast in Henry's
I don't know. We should point out that the movie is not based on Henry's life. Okay.
Of course, right. But yes,
so we get that. I don't. That's a good question. You mean if we were playing it today, or for that?
Sure, whatever. Like, who would you? Who characterizes?
Bradley Cooper. I mean, Bradley's. Once we'll try it again.
And to be fair, The Longest Day is not made about Henry's life, but Henry's life is, in this time frame, is absolutely a movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Call up every Hollywood producer you know, and then it's funny though. We're so far now removed from World War II that the way that most of us relate to what happened then is through the movies and through fiction. And, like Saving Private Ryan. Now, there's a lot of stuff, I have to say, there's certainly a lot of truth in all of those movies and everything that we see. There's also the reality, and we try to, that really is the heart of the book. The reality is war is a brutal, violent, savage thing. And it's necessary. That certainly that war was necessary. I don't know of any American anyway who can say it wasn't, but you have to fight it, but you also have to understand that war, when people say war sucks, they're right. It really does.
Henry, were you born in 24?
Yes, 1924, November 4th.
Yeah. So just to give some perspective, the Lincoln Memorial was built about 10 years before Henry was born. Like that's how far removed this history is. But here we are talking to someone who lived this history.
Yeah.
Also, the Depression, and then and this is just not necessarily about the book, but what were your thoughts? Like 5 years after World War II, your peers are going right back to Korea to go fight some more.
Yes, we've had nothing but continual wars all the way from World War I on, and it just I don't know. It just is a terrible thing to see young men have to go off and fight. And most of the young men, we were, whether it was in France, which we went twice to France to send soldiers over there to free those people over there. And we've been to Vietnam, we've been Cambodia, we've been to all these wars, Iraq, and all the wars that we've had. These little wars that last years and years and years. They kind of wear you down.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I recognize in your book, in terms of the wars that I was in, the tension, So for those that haven't read the book yet, there's a lot of incredible things in the book, and I don't want to spoil it. But at one point, Henry is on this impossible escape, and just the tension you must have felt all the time. It's very similar to what we deal with here, where you're just waiting. You don't know if the bomb is going to get pushed today or the next day, but you're always on the road, bombs or not, and it's horrible to have to deal with that all the time.
Yes. Well, it is. The tension it's hard to explain when you're behind the enemy lines. The things that can happen to you, the things that you have to do, like the book says, whatever it took, and that's what I had to do.
When you're gearing up to go D-Day, you're in the airplane and flying. I mean, you guys had a whole extra day to think about this. Like you said in the book, play cards, smoke, pray, read the Bible, that kind of thing. What was that time like? Were you able in any way at all to relax?
Oh, yes. I played a little bit of cards, won a little bit of money, and had to leave it behind. So I had a fairly large amount of money at that time, $1,200. That was a lot of money. And I figured I'd send it home, but I didn't get a chance to. I had to leave everything back. They gave us some invasion money, and that was about it. The rest of it was equipment. So,
was that $1,200 waiting for you when you got back to the UK?
I don't know whatever happened to it.
It went missing beforehand.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Okay.
Not to give the book away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And actually, I think your wife still kids you about that, right? I mean, so she still questions whether that really is where it went, or maybe you gambled it all somewhere else.
No, I was kind of tight-fisted. If I won, I left. But that's true. So many things happen, that you can't explain,
To your wife? Is that what you're saying?
What's that? What'd you say, Jim?
Let that one go. We'll let that one go. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's all right.
Somebody pointing out.
My wife
pointing out that you could have bought a house in Omaha for $1,200 in those days.
Yeah,
that's right. Absolutely right. That it's. My wife worked hard. She saved all of her money. We intended to build a home when we got back, got married. So she had saved her money, and my money just kind of went down a rat hole.
So, okay, you decide that you're going to go ahead and just join up so you have some control over what you do and where you go. But you end up in the 82nd or fighting with the 82nd, I guess I could say technically. By the way, I deployed with the 3rd Brigade of the 82nd in Iraq, and we did some time working with all of their different parachute infantry regiments. So that was that historical link is just incredible when you hear the names of the people and you see the poster on the wall. Like that's you. And it's remarkable to experience that. But did you have a pride in the fact that you were an airborne soldier, or was that even a thing yet?
Well, yes. When I enlisted in it, I wanted to get in an outfit that was a good outfit and it was a fighting outfit. And of course, the $50 that always entered my mind too. But yes, we had a terrific amount of men. We were a mixed group in Normandy from different units, but we all knew what we had jobs to do, and we did it. And that was the important thing, working together. We had wonderful leadership. Our leadership were good officers. They came there and they fought with you. There was no rear echelon or anything. They were there. They covered your back, and that was the important thing. You had to have good men covering your back.
What was your monthly rate? Like, how much money did you make? I mean, $50 for jump pay, but what was your basic salary?
Basic salary was like $21 at the time.
So
is that a month or is that a week?
That was regular soldiers. That was not us. I got $50 a regular pay. I got $50 overseas pay and $50 jump pay.
Wow. You were rolling in the dough, huh?
Oh man, yes, we certainly was. We're sending money home.
It's funny. Jump pay today is $150.
Is it real? Is that really what it is now?
That's all it is.
Yeah. Well,
not to turn up my nose at $150. I mean, first of all, it's a lot of beers. So
yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah, that's wonderful. $150. Well, that's good money, I would say.
Henry's gonna re-enlist, I think he's saying.
Yeah.
Henry's gonna go sign up.
Yeah. No, I would jump for the $150.
Have you not to take over here, but Henry, have you jumped since the war? Did you parachute ever afterwards, or?
I jumped during the war. Yeah.
No. I mean after you got out, have you?
Oh no. My wife didn't see that'd be a good thing. So of course, mommy had the word.
Okay.
Yeah. Any chance of a late life jump again, like go back next year, or heck, even in a couple of weeks? If they offered you a slot in a plane, would you go?
I might go, but I don't know if that jump. At my age, I'd probably break every bone in my body.
Well, you could use the fancier parachutes now. They'll have a guy jump with you, you know?
Oh yeah, they do. I know George Bush Sr. did that. He, what do they call it? Double up or something like that.
Tandem.
Yeah, tandem, right. So yeah, I still like to jump, but at my age, like I said, it's a little bit too late.
So why did you wait 75 years to tell this story, man?
Well, you'd seen so many bad things, did so many bad things yourself. You didn't feel like you wanted to open your guts up to somebody else, and tell the story. And I probably never would have if it wasn't for my family. I keep my medal. I had my medals and all that other stuff into a little box, and kids would play with the medals, take them to school and stuff like that, And then finally, they were growing up, and on the 50th anniversary, they said, "Dad, what did you do? You never ever said anything about the war." So I opened up a little bit, and then my grandsons, three of my grandsons, two of my grandsons, and a great grandson all joined the 82nd Airborne, and in the process of joining up, they wanted to know a few questions answered, and so we got opened up more and more all the time, and then finally got to be where different groups would ask me to speak at church or at a gathering of any kind, on the TV or on the radio. So it loosened up my thoughts a little bit on it. So, but there are some things that I would never ever tell, that still bother me because, again, the title of the book pretty much tells it all. Whatever it took, and it took some pretty bad things.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about John Steele because that's just such an iconic thing. And you guys jump in. And again, we're not getting too far into the book because I want you guys to really be able to enjoy it. Jim does a fantastic job, but I want to talk to you in a second about the book, Jim, as well. But Tom Steele he jumps in, and if you've seen The Longest Day, he gets hung up on the steeple. It's red buttons in the movie. But you run by him and you're like, hey, did you know it was Tom, or did you not know that?
He didn't really know.
About the steeple? Yeah. No.
And then
go ahead, Jim.
It's crazy because his brother is also.
We're like at cross purposes here. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to go. I don't know whether I'm not following on my screen here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, let me ask a different question. So one of the things, just to give the audience context, the guy that's hanging from the steeple in the church, he survives the war, but within a couple of days or right before that, his brother had died in the war. Like this war really hit every family in a lot of different ways. You had brothers also that were serving. Did you lose anybody during the war in the family?
No, I did not. We was very fortunate that no one was killed.
Jim, you are like a cat burglar when you write books. This is what I figured out, right? You are able to come in and write these incredible books with these authors and just leave no trace. Like it's like you were never there. You're like you mastered it with. I mean, Johnny Walker's voice is very particular and hard to capture in English because his English is unique. I forgot that you wrote this book as I was reading it and listening to it. That is masterful work, man. I don't know. How do you do that so well?
Well, the process, I mean, basically, you spend a lot of time with the person that you're working with. In Henry's case, we had, we had documents and, background, and actually Henry, though he hadn't talked about, his stuff, he had actually written about it many, many years ago. So which actually helped, which helped a lot. And then there had been other research done. And then on top of that, obviously we did research, but most the really the heart of it is sitting down and listening. And I forget how many days Henry and I spent together. But in every book, that's really what's involved. You're listening to the person. In the case of Johnny Walker, you're not only having, say, formal type sit-down interviews, or you're also having dinner, driving through the mountains at crazy speeds in ridiculous cars that are going to go over the edge any second. Chris and I, when we were working on American Sniper, they actually stayed with us for quite a while. I stayed with theirs. So you try to get, just try to spend as much time with a person and, and hear their story and then let them talk. That's find a way of telling what they're, transforming, I guess, what they say into written words.
Yeah. Well, it's masterful, and everybody can go to Amazon. There's a link on the page here. You can get the book. It's called Whatever It Took. If there's a 7-star rating, I'd like to give it that, because Henry, the story is impossible, and I'm so glad that you finally told it. You were describing just the everyman's perspective from the infantry guy's point of view, and I don't know, man. Just thank you for writing it, because it's such a big piece of this whole thing to see that, to know that it's you times 10,000 other guys immediately in your area. I mean, think about how big a division is and how many other guys just like you there are, and we'll never hear from those folks.
That's right.
Yeah. Good job, Pete. Yeah, that's
what's going on. We have like a little bit, or I do have a little bit of a tech delay, and I'm not like picking up all the words. So I apologize if I was supposed to come in there or something. So
Yeah. Okay. And I don't know what to do about that. Yeah, the
Sorry.
wireless thing is always crazy. I guess I'll ask you a question, Henry. When you find yourself behind enemy lines as a paratrooper, you talk about having a very specific job and training to go do things. Did the fog ever clear up for you over time? Did combat ever slow down for you?
Not really. No, no, it didn't. It's something that you carry in your mind all the time, and it lives with you. It just lives with you. Uh, Although at times it's like a woman having a baby. You
Mm,
you never had a baby, so you don't know what it is to go through it. And that's the same way with the war. It's hard to put into words. And I tell you, Jim is a wonderful writer. His writing is as smooth as honey.
right.
And yeah, and he did a good job, a wonderful job, terrific job,
Mm.
taking a ragtag story and bringing it out the way it did. Uh, but I don't think that'll ever leave me because of the things that you saw and the things that you did.
Yeah.
They are written indelibly in your mind.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. The Have you been able to forgive yourself for the things that you had to do when you did whatever it took?
Not really. There's one episode with a young lady, and I will probably never ever forget that. So, and the other things, when you have to kill people with knives and guns and things like that, it's close contact,
Yeah.
and you see that person's face, and one episode, one time where I had a Thompson submachine gun, and going through the hedgerows, came upon this one soldier. He is left behind, evidently as a sniper or something, and my gun jammed, and
Oh,
I was fortunate enough. I jumped down on him and caught him. He had just raised his gun to shoot at me, but it got caught in the underbrush. And I was on top of him before that, and I had to do some terrible things to get out. So, those things never ever leave your mind.
yeah. That immediate face-to-face combat that you've had to endure several times, at least in the book as you write it.
Yeah,
It's and it's those things where it's not because you're a better warrior, it's because something snags or you move a tenth of a second earlier or whatever it is. It's not measured in the quality of the. It's just measured in. Gosh, it seems like it's just measured in luck and in chance.
yes, yes. Well, you hear so many stories about, and a lot of them aren't never written, but the ones that were in combat a long time, and killing got to be just a way of staying alive. I mean, not just alive, but to be there. You get a savage approach to death.
Jim, are you able to keep up at all?
Yeah,
Pardon me?
I was gonna ask. I mean, one of the things that Henry, you told me early on is that you were an atheist during the war, and then you had experiences which later on proved to be very important regarding your faith and religion. Although you didn't become more religious, I guess I should say, until after the war, and maybe to balance off some of the negative things there, maybe you might want to mention something along those lines.
Yes, that's right, Jim. Those things, like I say, they still bother me, but I feel better about them because I know it was just a survival of the fittest, and you wanted to survive. And that that point, I guess will never forget that. But being of faith, I feel that I have had a release from part of that because God has brought it out of my mind. Some of the things, like I say, I don't want to talk about, but God has eased my mind on them. So my wife brought me to Christ, and that was a wonderful thing because I had no faith. I had no purpose in life when I was younger. And of course, when I got married, my wife brought me around to Christ, and that was the main thing that helped me through my faith. My faith brought me through, I would say.
And she prayed for you during the war. She just had this incredibly positive attitude. It seems that she, even after you went missing for a long time, the family received several letters, and then finally a third party, which we're not even sure of which third party it was, it was probably the Red Cross, does inform the U.S. that you're alive. But all through that, she kept telling people, "Oh no, he'll be back. He'll be back."
Yeah.
And I guess she was praying every night or something. Is that?
Yes, that's right. She prayed consistently, and she has a great faith. And she's just such a wonderful, wonderful wife, mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. Married 74 years. And our anniversary will be the 1st of July, be our 75th anniversary. So she put up with me for that length of time. So she's just,
yeah, you might want to keep her. Keep her around.
You're right. I'll keep her around. You bet. She's a wonderful wife.
You know, the thing is with not only you, but pretty much your entire generation, you guys come back from the war and you just start carrying on. And again, not to toot your own horn, but you build a fairly successful construction company where you're building a lot of things, including schools, I noticed.
Yeah.
And why, how did you guys do that? I mean, what drove you to then get into business and get successful? And I don't mean just you. Why, the people that around you across the country.
Yeah, that's right. They had initiative. They had a strong initiative. Whatever they liked, they put their back to it. And again, like the book says, whatever it took, that's what they did to have a successful business. We had a very successful business. We had very good clients, and we always finished our jobs on time or before. And so, our work was always very good. But it does. It takes a lifetime to build a business, and that's for certain. But after a lifetime, you build a business, and the next generation has some other ideas, and they want to do their own thing too. So I always say, more power to that.
That's true. Do you hold any ill will towards, the Germans or that kind of thing at all from all the struggling and strife that your generation had to go to?
Yeah. At first, I totally hated the Germans because I saw the things they did, and I just could not bring myself to like any of them. To me, to kill one was just eliminating another problem on the planet. So, yeah, but like I say, my faith has brought me through, and now I can forgive all that. I guess they can forgive us for what we did. So, but yes, it's hard. Again, like I say, you did what you had to do and to survive, and that's the way it was.
Have you been back to Normandy at all since the 40s?
Yes, my younger son Dale took my wife and I and his wife over, And the biggest thing of that trip to me was when I went into the cemeteries and I read the names of the fellows I knew that were still there. Many of the boys were repatriated back to the United States after the end of the war, but there's still thousands and thousands of them over there yet, and take pictures of their stones, you know. Yeah, and reminiscing it, that helped a lot too, as far as breaking up my memories, the hate and that I had too.
Why did it take going to the cemetery to do that? I mean, you're looking at a bunch of gravestones of your friends. Why didn't it go the other way and enrage you?
No, because I felt that they gave their lives, young men, 19, 25, so at that age, they gave their lives to come over and free a nation, not to gain any territory or any wealth or anything, but to free. And they didn't live a life. They gave that life. I lived that life. I've had 75 years, 74 years of marriage. That's a wonderful thing. I have 4 wonderful children, 9 grandchildren, and several great-grandchildren. So I've been very fortunate. I've lived the life, but they did not. And that's what gets to you. Knowing that they gave it all. You can't give any more than your life.
Yeah, that's it's true. That's all you can give. Would you trade your good fortune and your long life and long marriage to let one of those guys come back?
Well, I wouldn't be telling the truth if I said that. No, I still say I was blessed. God had his hand in my life and brought me through. Not that I knew about it at the time, but he did.
What's the highest decoration you got militarily? Did you get Bronze Star, Silver Star, any of that kind of thing at all?
You know what? I never like to talk about medals because I'll tell you what. I know guys that did fantastic things and got nothing.
Yeah.
And to me, I was no better than another man. That you know, I was wounded, so I got a Purple Heart. But a lot of guys got wounded and died. So, you know, medals to me just don't mean a whole lot. I thank you for that opportunity that they wanted to give you something for your service, but I feel there's guys that earned a lot more medals than I ever did and never got one.
Well, you did some stuff that, at least today, if you would have done it, it would get you some medals. So, I mean, look, you guys are all heroes, and you took on a fight that was much bigger than anything we've faced in this time. We're so divided nowadays and so angry with one another. You guys managed to get well. Obviously, you survived the Great Depression, but then you go and you take on tyranny of the worst kind with Hitler and Mussolini and the crew. What are your thoughts as you look over the last 75 years of social struggles, compared it to today? Is it any worse or any better today, or what's your sense of where we're at?
Well, the Bible tells us we're always going to have troubles. Troubles are always going to be with us. And so I guess as long as there's somebody out there that wants what you have, you got to protect it. And that's the way it's been through all these little wars, even. Everything that's somebody's trying to get something that you have, not willing to work for it, but want to take it away from you. And they have to stand up, and our nation has always stood up. Twice they went to France, like I said before. Twice they went to France to free the French and the people over there. So we've always been a giving nation. And I think even today, wherever there's a problem in the world, we're out there to help. We send people, we send money, we send equipment. we are always ready to help someone. So I think America is a great country, and there's none like it. None like it.
Jim, any questions?
No, I'm not sure what else. It was an interesting question for Henry. Given that we've been in, I guess, various states of quarantine and lockdown and social distancing and everything. I'm wondering, Henry, if you have some advice that you might have for and I think we kind of see the virus is probably going to be around for quite a while, but we're at least seeing light at the end of the tunnel that we're in, and hopefully things get better. But maybe, Henry, you've got some advice for us for afterwards as we get out of that. I mean, we're beyond kind of the shock and awe period. Is there some way of persevering? Is there something we should tell ourselves? What did you tell yourself after the war to keep? How did you keep going on?
Well, Jim, it's one of those things again. I think that when this is all over, we still got all pulled together. There's going to be a lot of things that have to be mended before this country gets back to normal again. I feel that it's going to be a big uphill fight, I think, to get our country back and running like it was before this hit us. So I would say, as people covered my back during the war, I want to help people as much as I can now. There's going to be more people that need help now, probably than ever before. And I think we have to work together on this and help each other. We've always been a nation to help other people, and we're going to need a little help ourselves.
Yeah. It's interesting. Your battle, your war, stands almost exactly halfway between the Civil War and modern times right now. And that's just not that much time. When you look back at when you were a young kid, there were people that were probably alive that had just from that time even.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts historically on what America is? We're really hard on ourselves. We're not allowed to be nationalists, that kind of thing. But what are your thoughts on what America means in general? You kind of talked about it a little bit before, but specifically, what do you think of the United States?
The United States is the most wonderful nation on this earth. Like I said before, we are out there to help anybody, anytime, whether it's a hurricane or whatever, floods or whatever. We're there to help people. We've done that throughout the world. United States stands for freedom and for rights and freedom of religion. We have all the freedoms that are registered in the Constitution, and we exercise each and every one of them in our own way. And I thank the good Lord that I was born and raised in the United States.
Is Kay still there? I was going to ask Kay a question if she's got a second.
Yeah, she's outside on the phone.
Oh, she is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let me ask Jim this question. Jim, tell me why Henry is special. Like I mean, we've got this unique opportunity to talk to someone that's been through so much.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, he is someone who has been through so much, and he's a resource. He's a living resource of really of doing whatever it took, or really perseverance. And that again, talk a little bit about Ray Lambert and Every Man a Hero, the other book, but also I had the privilege of speaking with many of the surviving generation, at least the guys kind of east of the Mississippi, the surviving generation of D-Day and that, and they have been through hell. I mean, they went through a depression. They grew up in depression. They go through a war, a horrendous war, and then they rebuild the country. And that is an experience. If we can't find some advice or inspiration, or both, from either of those three experiences, let alone putting them all together. Or, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And something, Henry said about America, and I don't, obviously, people know I wave the flag, so I'm going to be a little bit back off on that. But one thing I would say, we are always a work in progress. We are making things better. We point out the problem that we have, or how we don't quite meet that ideal, and give us some time, because we're gonna kick butt on that problem too. So, and that, and I think that's the American spirit, and you find that in, Clinton's, actually, I mean, they call Clinton a small town. It's bigger than my town, but you find that in, middle America, whether it's, in Iowa, upstate New York, downstate New York. You find it in the big cities, in California and LA, Seattle, all across America, St. Louis. I'll start naming all every town. We'll be here for a while, but that's my thought.
You mentioned something, Jim, that I've always felt, and I felt that the Great Depression, 10 years of having nothing, the Dust Bowl and all the rest of it, 10 years of that, I think God was trying to get us in a position and to fight this war. I don't think that you could have done that today, because we knew what it was to be without things, and we knew what things were worth fighting for. And I think God had prepared that for us. I really truly believe that, even though it was tough going through those times.
I asked Kay a question off mic when we were working on getting everything set up, and I asked her basically, this is a question I was going to ask her if she was available. You just tell us about your dad. Tell us why he's great. And this is what she wrote. She wrote, "My dad is kind, humble, generous, and a godly man. He's always been there for me and was always the first to help others. He is such a joyful person and has such an infectious laugh. He taught me to be a hard worker and to never give up. I'm not just proud of him for what he did 76 years ago during D-Day, but what he has done since then. An honorable man, a devoted husband, a family man, and for that, I am so very proud to call him my father."
She could have written a book. That's pretty good.
You're right, Jim. That's very kind of her.
I mean,
She's
is there
a wonderful daughter?
Yeah. Is there a better legacy to leave than something like that, though? I mean, that's what every dad wants to hear. Like, war aside, that's nothing compared to that.
No, that's right. And we have 3 other wonderful sons and daughters. They're a blessing to us. They really are. They take care of us in our old age. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So, I'm very proud of them. They're all good workers. All have had their own businesses, all worked together. Good family, good Christian family, loving, caring, compassionate.
If you had a piece of advice for us, some wisdom, because look, we have access to all the knowledge in the world, but we're not great at wisdom. What would you impart on us?
Well, and I would say the scriptures. You follow the 10 commandments and we will never go wrong. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Get into the scriptures. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, any final questions or anything at all?
No, I think Henry's pretty much summed it all up. So throw it back to you now that I can actually hear what's going on.
Yeah. Well, so we've had a lot of World War II guys on. We had Woody Williams, who's a Medal of Honor recipient. We've had on Harold Bray, who survived the USS Indy sinking. We've had on, we actually had Sammy Nestico, who's a 95-year-old composer who lived through that era as well. Just, a ton of Chet Roan, who was, he raced to the Battle of the Bulge for his first fight. All of you guys are incredible. Just to a man, you've all been such incredible people and lived such incredible lives. If I could give a stronger, I don't have a stronger rating for the book. It's just fantastic. It's called Whatever It Took. And you are not going to believe just the fact that Henry is still here. There's must have been, like I always say, like Henry, in my combat time, I've been hit by a tank, hit by mortars, shot at by the enemy, all kinds of things. I must have 20 lives. I mean, I ran way past 9, and you got me beat easy with the impossible like stuff that you survived. So if you guys ever want to understand World War II from another perspective, from the ground truth, which you all know I'm big on, you've got to read this book. It's just fantastic. And as always, rate and review it, because that's what helps bump the book up in the rankings. And this book is seriously one of the best books I've read in a very, very, very long time.
Well, thank you so very much. I certainly appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, fellas, I'm going to push this button over here. Stand by.